Okay, looks like we're live. Nice. All right, cool. Okay, what's up, guys? Back again doing some live concept art. Here I have the thumbnail here. So what we're designing today is we're taking a look at this fun design of this Crab-Mech for a long time um, project we've been working on called Fish World. I've been working on this project for years now, and it's just one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on. I've been a bit shy to work on it recently. I don't know why, but we kicked off today by just jumping in and going for it. I can actually show you the progression of the ideas here. So currently, what I'm working on is this section right here, which is the inner cockpit design essentially. But the design itself is kind of taken on multiple looks. You know, we started with something very bare bones. We started with just this shape breakdown, and then we added some kind of brassy undertones. You know, tried to develop it a little bit more, kind of clean it up a little bit, start to figure out what this thing looks like. Added on some of the patina. You know, some of the cool oxidized copper look. And then since then, we've just been painting pretty much until we find ourselves where we are here with a cool little pilot on the roof here with this Crab-Mech. We got the kind of shell of the Crab-Mech, just the kind of bare bones, the casing, just what it looks like when it's all closed up and the legs aren't on, you know, to have that fun kind of look. You know, people love to see kind of under the guts and all that stuff. So this was a super fun one to design. So I'm just live streaming kind of just for fun, I guess. Typically, I do read the chat, so if you guys ever want to ask any questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions in the chat. I have noticed the past few streams I've done have definitely been, I feel like I was only answering questions, and it was actually really hard just to focus on the drawing itself, so I feel like these streams, they have eventually hit a bit of a critical mass where there's just too many questions for me to answer, and I can't focus on the art. So today I might be focusing a little bit more on the art than answering the chat questions. But as always, I always read the chat. I always take a look. Thanks to everybody who says what's up and all that stuff. So yeah, happy to be back streaming. I'm back in New York here. I guess I don't have my camera on. I just realized. Which do I have? Can I do my? Wait, I have to check something. I don't even know if I can do my camera because I've run out of ports. Oh no. No camera for now, but I think I have some kind of device, some kind of like dongle or something, I'm sure, that would allow me to plug in my camera. Um, but yeah, we're just kicking it today, doing some concept art, baby. Yeah, you know, I've definitely felt my focus drift back and forth between concept art, education, all these different things, you know. Balancing your artistic practice is definitely a challenge, as always. But just getting back to basics for me and just working on stuff that I like. So, for instance, with this, you know, this project is just something that I've enjoyed for just ages and ages. Okay, I think that's that. Does that get rid of that? Yeah, it does. My goodness, whenever it does the smart guides thing in Photoshop, it just really bothers me. I don't know why. Oh, we got Gardery in the chat. What's up, Patricia? How's it going? Cool crab thingy. Yeah, isn't it cool? Isn't it fun? So I just went through the phase of kind of start to how we got where we are, starting with super blocked out gray blob, adding in some, you know, coppery look, cleaning it up a little bit, adding in the magenta motif, kind of knowing that I was going to go for this bluish look, so it complements quite nicely. And then we've just been kind of rendering and painting, and now we're here, you know, we're fleshing out the interior of the cockpit, and then we've got the kind of closed up shell cased out version over here, you know. What could be fun with this one over on the right is we could, in theory, like put it on some like risers as if it was like in a shop getting worked on. That'd be kind of cool, I think. Yeah, let's do that. That's fun. One thing that I want to embrace more of is just like storytelling with design and designing with storytelling. I think along the way, like many artists, it's really easy to get fixated on a idea of quality. Like it has to look this way or that way, or there's all these ideas that we have about what we think something should look like. And sometimes what that ends up resulting in is somewhat of a stagnant workflow. And I have felt myself a little bit, on occasion, feeling kind of restricted in terms of what I allow myself to actually draw, kind of forgetting that, I just love world building and I just love design. So yeah, super excited to be back on the horse, as it were, and just designing and having fun and having a blast. So this was great. This was inspired by a challenge we did in the Patreon Discord early this morning, where we took 3 references and we kind of combined them all together. So the references were these 3 images here. I put them all along because how I was working was like this was in the middle and I was looking at the references. So you have this cool like brass candle suit thing. And then we had this cool crab down here and this weird funky spacesuit. So these 3 ideas kind of meshed together and I went, hey, this is kind of like an idea for my Fish World IP. And here we are with a cool kind of result of bashing those ideas together, which is pretty fun. Gary says, this is a luxurious crab. Absolutely, man. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I imagine for this world, this crab would only be contracted by most likely quite a wealthy clients who are looking to clear some debris, that they is maybe a little unseemly, unsightly, for their tastes. Oh man, I have a fun life update. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons. I don't know if you guys enjoy Dungeons and Dragons, but it's something that I did a lot of when I was like a kid. But like without any dice, like we kind of just sort of made everything up, which sort of defeated the purpose. But it was still really fun, just the kind of imaginative world, and definitely was my intro and part of my, love for world building. But I haven't had the opportunity to really get in a game in like a long time and actually do Dungeons and Dragons. So I had an absolute blast with some of my my homies. We got into it and we played a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons, and it was so fun, man. I would highly recommend it. Highly recommend it to anyone who just wants to have a fun and good time. D&D is pretty cool, I gotta say. Definitely would recommend, for sure. All right. Oh yeah, also just want to mention the last stream. Man, I was not expecting to go kind of that deep into some of the more art career conversational stuff. I think I was maybe a little more negative than I intended to be. That's definitely something that I never want to do. I never want to kind of start just being negative about anyone's artistic journey or certain elements of the industry, like the entertainment industry specifically, but it kind of all sort of came out, and I debated taking the stream down, but I decided, you know what, just leave it up. I'll put a disclaimer and all that stuff. But but yeah, we definitely got pretty intense on the last stream. So I got some really great comments and some messages of people messaging me kind of, it's interesting how when you get really real about stuff, sometimes people, they reach out and they're kind of grateful, or it's kind of interesting, to get the result. You never know what people are going to say when you kind of speak your mind about some of that stuff. So anyway, just wanted to bring that up briefly and just kind of mention that, I'm just super kind of supportive of everyone, and I want everyone to really achieve their highest aspirations for their art. So yeah, I wanted to address that really quickly. Yeah, that last stream was a bit of a fever dream, man. I think I was really sleepy and just like just kind of kept going, all right, let me see if I can get my camera up and running here. Yeah, it looks like today might be a no cam stream. You guys are chill with that? Okay. So yeah, Let's see. Let's read the chat here. Oh my God, what up, Mia? How's it going? Woo to you too. Ayla says, ooh, maybe to add to the theme, the crab is behind, held up by fish hooks or something. I love everything in your fish world. Thank you so much, Ayla. That's super cool of you. Thank you. That's a great idea. You know, I had that thought of like hanging it up by some kind of suspended thing. I'll probably end up doing like a combination of those things. That sounds pretty good. Patricia says, or Gardery says, OMG, if you catch Ian at LBX, he loves Dungeons and Dragons. Or was it Jesper? I think it was Ian. Well, I'll ask both of them. How about that? And yeah, dude, guys, by the way, if any of you are going to Lightbox Expo in Pasadena, which is a really fun arts convention, you know, it's a little bit animation focused, but it's really amazing for artists. If any of you guys are there and you see me, please come say hi. I could not be happier to be approached by you folks. So definitely come say hi if you see me at Lightbox. What's up, Nabs? Tori says, hi, Gabriel. I'm a beginner and I have a question. How do I start an art project? How do I come up with ideas, define the scope, that kind of thing? Well, I mean, that's a great question, I suppose. I think that, you know, with many questions, oftentimes the answer is in the question. And if I, you know, were to think back on this project, let's say this Fish World project, and this is quite a big project, right? And another thing to take into consideration when you are, I think, like starting out and you are a beginner, one thing to take into consideration is that the time it takes you to, let's say, execute on an idea, it might be a little bit longer than somebody who's, you know, let's say been around the block for a little while. So for instance, for me, you know, this kind of Crab-Mech idea, I completed this today. I started this morning and it's about 5 p.m., you know, and this is kind of where I'm at with it currently. So just like throughout the day for me, I kind of plugged away at it, did a little bit of extra painting, did a little bit of extra work, and I kind of arrived at a spot where I think it's going well. So for someone who doesn't necessarily have as much training or practice as I've had, it might take you a little bit longer to approach some of these ideas. You know, this is quite a complex idea, like a mechanical crab with a lot of material stuff going on with the oxidized copper and the painting and the idea, you know, that putting it in perspective, like it might take a long time for someone to resolve something like this. So when you're starting out, I think the most important thing that you can possibly do is to just start and really just kind of get into it, because there's no greater teacher than experience, right? And if you have a fun idea in your head, just start drawing and just start putting those ideas down. And as you kind of put those ideas down, you'll start to get a sense of, you know, this is hard. I actually don't know how to draw this. I don't know how to paint this. Bam. That is the perfect opportunity to then say, oh, cool. Now I know what to practice. It's like a really fun, amazing element of art is that the feedback is pretty instantaneous, you know, because it's on the page. You can kind of see like, oh gosh, you know, I don't actually really know how to draw in perspective, and that would really help with this. So, oh, one moment, guys. Just a quick second here. Okay, I'm back. All right. Cool. So yeah, I think just start and you'll get a pretty good idea of what your capacity is, kind of where your skill sets lie, you know, and on the flip side, you could be a very skilled artist, but your process for developing ideas might not necessarily match up with your capacity to draw and paint. So you'll end up with kind of almost the inverse problem where, you know, you can draw whatever you want, but you're kind of stuck in the ideas loop. You're kind of doing the same thing over and over and over. And it's kind of hard to progress. So I would definitely say like, just start. You'll get a pretty good idea of what's going to work for you. Um, you know, that's probably a little bit of a frustrating advice because you are looking to start and you actually want to know how to make a good go of it. So to kind of add on to that, that disclaimer aside of just like, just start, just go for it, classic answer. To add on to that, another thing I'll add is that when you're setting scope, keeping in mind your capacities is really important because if you set your goals to be, and for instance, let's say this is the first time you're doing it, so you don't even have any experience, you might say like, oh, I want to do like 20 pages for this project. Like I want to do 20 pages of designs and I want it to be super cool and super eye-catching and fun. You've never done this before and you've set a goal of, let's say, 20 pages and you are probably not going to get to 20 pages. You're probably going to have a really hard time on the first page. And even then, it's like you might not even finish that first page. Or while doing the first page, you realize like, oh man, I don't actually have the drawing chops that I think I need to communicate this idea. So again, it's kind of a call to action to sort of go back and do a bit more practice in some areas and develop and bolster your skill set. It can be hard to know. But yes, I think that in the event that you are not able to, let's say, achieve your initial goal, if you're looking to, do your project, if you're unable to attain your initial goal, don't be too hard on yourself. Cause again, it's the first time you're doing this, you're gaining data, you're developing your process, you're learning how you work and what you like to do when you work. There's a bit of a misnomer that there is a right way to do these things, as an artist, that there's a right way to learn and a right way to do this and a right way to approach a project. And listen, at the end of the day, artist to artist, like these people could not be more different to each other. We think of artists as a bit of a monolith that you're a good artist or you're a bad artist. But really, artists are very different to each other and have very different workflows, very different ways of working. And so the best thing you can do, in my opinion, in my experience, is to give yourself the opportunity to learn how you work. How do you work? What do you like to do? How do you like to work? Do you like to start with ideas? Do you like to start with just crazy shapes and sketches? And, do you like to bounce ideas back and forth between people? For me, I love the latter. I love bouncing ideas back and forth between my peers. It's like the best thing ever. And I mean, this entire project, my Fish World project, if you look back at some of the old Fish World streams, this entire project came about because some kind of random guy who I was around in some random call somewhere, he was looking at a design I was doing and he went, oh, that hat kind of looks like a fish. And I went, oh yeah, fish hat. And I just drew a fish hat and I drew fish hat guy and I drew fish hat guys, like maid servants. I think I actually have the drawing here somewhere. Let's see. That's this one. I drew this fish hat guy and then I drew him standing with his fish hat and his fish hat servants. This is back when the project was a little bit cornier. She has a sardine can hat, which is maybe a bit much, in hindsight, maybe a bit much. But that's how this project came to be. It was just someone kind of going, oh, that hat kind of looks like a fish. I'm like, all right, we're doing fish hat, baby. And then I created this super dystopian hierarchical structure and I understand the whole world now and what goes on and all that stuff. And even most recently, I did this cool map painting of, it's still in development, obviously, but this is kind of what the world is starting to look like a little bit, which is really exciting, putting this together. So that's cool. But yeah, the real way to get started is to do exactly that, to get started. That's what I would say for a beginner who wants to start an art project. Be realistic, set extremely achievable goals. Sit down and work on ideas today. And then when you do that, check it off a box and say, I did that today. It's all progress. Everything's towards progress, right? Alrighty. So. Mia says, I will look. Yes, look for me at Lightbox. For salvation, Mia says Lightbox seems like it'll be fun this year. Yes. Crab people unite. Absolutely. Cartery says, I feel like I should give D&D another shot. It looks fun. It's just very time consuming, but if you have a cool group that you're really connected with, I think that's awesome. Yeah, man. I got back into a beloved card game of mine that I used to play a lot when I was a kid, which is Magic the Gathering. I got really into it again these days, which has been so much fun. And strangely enough, a strange fact about me, if you guys didn't know this already, but I've never lived in the same place more than 3 years. So my sense of community has always been very transient. Like I typically won't like invest a lot in certain friendships just because I always have this feeling that I'm just gonna be gone anyway. So like it's sort of even a little bit of a I don't know. Like I sometimes feel bad inserting myself into someone's life and then just dipping, because it's happened many times every 3 years for me. So that's been kind of an interesting element of life. But since I've been in New York now for about 3, going on, this will be my 4th year, and I'll be here for another 4. So now that I kind of have more of a home base for the first time in my life, if I'm being honest, like I've actually let myself kind of plant some roots. So I've been, getting back into Magic, and I've got a really great friend group who I play with, and they're really good guys. And we started playing D&D together, and it's been awesome. It's been incredible. I've been having such a fun time. So it's great, like I've been feeling like I can slow down a little bit, invest more in what's around me, and show some real appreciation to the folks in my life who have been, really instrumental and really incredible. Just very, very grateful for my community and all that stuff. Even like, especially to all of you guys, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It's been a really strange 3 years for me. It's been the most exciting, weird roller coaster of my life that I've ever had. And I've had a pretty strange, crazy life. So, it's not nothing. But feeling very, very grateful and excited that I'm, doing these kind of things that I've never kind of let myself do, like get into a D&D campaign and, long term, like we're going to be doing this maybe for like a couple of years. Who knows? It'll be cool. Ba-ba-ba. Aura says, then you messed it up. World building W. So true. So true. Aura says, make sure to like and subscribe. Yo, thanks, Oro. Yeah, guys, if you appreciate the streams and you glean some wisdom from these, definitely drop a like. Definitely comment your favorite plant, or comment how much you love crabs. The ultimate life form, the crab. Yeah, Crab-Mech is super fun. I love this design a lot already. Tori says, thank you so much. I really searched for a while and didn't find many artists talking about it. This will be really helpful. I'm so glad. Yeah, just have fun. Just like get after it, man. Try and like learn. And you are your own best teacher at the end of the day. And no matter what anybody teaches you, you still have to absorb it, understand it, all of that stuff. So there you go. Ba-ba-ba. Mia says, congrats. That's a home community. Is a great feeling. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Heck yeah. Carter says, that's amazing, Gabriel. Happy to hear you planted, found your community. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. You guys are so nice. What the heck? Mia says, what is your character in D&D? Can you share? Absolutely, I can share. Discord I'm on is doing a Crabtober. That's crazy. That's awesome. Yeah, my D&D character. Oh, goodness gracious. I think I did a quick sketch for it even. I don't have it on this computer. It's on my iPad. So the character I'm playing right now in D&D, for those of you who are D&D nerds and want to know, is a Summer Eladrin elf, because the DM restricted the playable characters to either be human or elf or half elf, So I went for a Summer Eladrin, and I multi-classed. For those of you guys who don't know what that is, it's when you kind of do sort of 2 classes at the same time. So you can kind of do extra stuff. And I dual classed a fighter and a druid, which I thought was pretty cool. And the subclass of druid is a Circle of Wildfire druid. So what's fun about the character is you can essentially do a Summer Eladrin bonus action which is to teleport like 30 feet. So your character can teleport 30 feet. Then you can take an action and do, I think it's fiery teleportation, which is a 60-foot teleportation spell, I believe. I actually don't know. And then because I'm a fighter, I can action surge and I can teleport again if I want to. So it's like a really weird hyper mobile teleporting elf fighter. It's been awesome. And I told my DM, I'm like, listen, man, you got to balance around this because I can just teleport anywhere. And he's like, all right, sure. And I didn't think he would take that very seriously, but the first combat I tried to teleport, and the location that he had designed accounted for this. And I got teleported straight to a prison cell, and I had to wild shape into a squirrel and escape. It was really fun. But it was a blast, man. It was a blast. It was really fun. So that's the current character I'm playing. Current. But yeah, it's been super cool. Patricia says, I feel this as well. Moved around a lot. Not sure where is home. Dude, I super relate to that, man. Like I can be adjusted really quickly to a new environment, but it's still good to have a sense of place. Yeah, so true. Aurora said Druid Fighter is you as a person. Honestly, kinda. A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's fun. You know, when I was younger, I actually had a lot of, I struggled a lot with anger when I was younger. Part of it was dietary. Turns out my body can't metabolize gluten. I did not know that when I was a kid. So I would ingest the glutinous mass, and it would turn me into the most irritable, rageful child ever. But another part of it was that I'm just very emotional. I'm a very emotional person. So it's kind of interesting because the whole Summer Eladrin lore is that they're very ruled by emotions. So it's like fun to kind of have that personal sense to the character as well, which is kind of cool. So I'm thinking that these kind of eyeballs on the crab. So the lore of the crab, these little crab things, is that they, after there's a catastrophic storm, let's say, to the fish world city, because of course this is a gleaming mecca. The city can be understood in 3 sections, where you have this kind of gleaming metropolis of a location. You know, I think I even had some like extra. Did I end up doing any extra? I had some clouds at one point, but I feel like I had a ship there at some point. Did I not? Did I have a ship? Maybe not. Maybe I'm making stuff up in my mind. Yeah, I think I am. Anyway, oh no, here's some ships I did. But yeah, so the city can be understood in 3 different sections. You have the kind of primary sort of, I would say, ruling class, the economic class over the city. And they essentially kind of control the world via their economic power. And they're each kind of tied to different essential services the city needs, you know. Some are, you know, for instance, in control of the production of copper, which is like the most important material because it's naturally corrosion resistant to the elements, which is super important because they're stuck in the middle of the ocean. The second location is the kind of just sort of the port city. So it's still on the Black Rock. It's still on the island. And these are, you know, all of your everyday folk who, you know, are craftspeople, you know, they work, maybe they own businesses too, but on a much smaller scale, and they kind of work and live and all that good stuff. And then on the tertiary level, there is the docks and the boardwalk, essentially. So these areas are very kind of, I would say, much more treacherous, much more dubious. You know, if you're living in these areas, you're probably born into it. You probably, you know, or you've like lost everything. Very much the struggle area of this land, you know. So whenever a storm hits, the entire boardwalk basically gets destroyed. And all the people kind of have to flee into the city, or they just die and get swept out to sea. It's a pretty brutal world, I gotta say, guys. I'm not gonna lie. So they all kind of rush in, and, you know, much to the dismay of the you know, people up in the top, they all kind of pack in. And then when the storm clears, they just kind of get to rebuilding. You know, it's a very normal part of life. Probably like once or twice a year, they have to rebuild everything. You know, so these kind of boardwalks are made from, you know, either shipwrecks, like shipwreck materials, or made from giant pieces of coral, or you can see even here they've built an arena out of the old shell of a dead crab. I'm going to repaint this, but, you know, it's a pretty cool fixture, I think, so far. But yeah, so that's kind of the vibe, is that this place gets rebuilt constantly. But the debris is a bit of a problem. So the idea behind the Crab-Mech is that the very, very wealthy will employ the Crab-Mechs to go and sweep away all the debris. So it's also a way for them to kind of control how things are rebuilt and kind of control what they have access to. So it's also like very much a power play and restrictive to the people. So that's the kind of lore behind the Crab-Mech. Here's a fun fact about world building, which is that none of the Crab-Mech stuff existed before this morning. And when I designed it, I kind of worked backwards from, I have a Crab-Mech, how does this fit into the world? And I took stock of what I already had for the world and the kind of pitch of what it is. And I essentially reverse engineered how this would be used in that world. And I think that is my favorite way to world build. It's working backwards from what you already know and what you already have. So this like super easily fit into what I already had. And now I have a really cool extra element to this thing. And eventually, if I ever were to pitch this, what's super fun is that like the Crab-Mech is something that a player character could hop in and, go underwater and all of that stuff and clear the debris. And maybe you end up getting in one and you're doing a revolution and you're walking through the streets in the Crab-Mech, maybe something like that. Something goes awry. Maybe a rebellious force, fixed some kind of weapon to the Crab-Mech and marches it through the town, and it's painted with the rebels' colors. There's just a lot of fun stuff you can do with something like this, which is kind of sick. Another cool thing is that it has a very striking silhouette and that it's a big metal thing in a populated area that walks around. It just kind of draws attention, the motion, the movement. So, if you look at games like BioShock, what's great is those big characters, the big daddy characters, are really great at grounding you in that world. Like those things kind of are big. They kind of set a sense of scale, claustrophobia, all of that stuff. So having kind of key props that you can point to and say, this is going to be walking around, this is going to do this and that for the mood and the vibe and the story. It can be really great. It can be a really powerful world building tool. So again, just reminding you guys that world building is not that complicated. Also, if you guys would like to join the next class I'm doing a class on just this, on world building with a heavy focus on costume design. So yeah, if you love character design, this is like totally for you, man. We're going to be getting really deep into design and all of that stuff, costume. I'll put a link in the chat here in case you guys want to check it out. But yeah, it starts in about a month. So if you guys like, you can go sign up. There's some limited spots left. If you want feedback, you can get feedback. But yeah, I'm going to be taking you through a bunch of assignments to get you in this process of world building. Yeah, so it's going to be a fun one for sure. And I'm dropping an official trailer hopefully tomorrow. I've recorded all the voiceover and stuff for it, so you guys can get a better sense of what it's all about tomorrow when I drop that trailer. Normally when I drop a video about a course, it sells out pretty quick. So if you guys do want to get a spot, I would recommend, at least messaging me and telling me to put one aside for you. Okay. Tithella says, yeah, Summer Eladrin makes a lot of sense for you. Dude, the way you said that, is like when the white girl with the single dread asks your star sign and you tell them and they go, oh yeah, of course. That's the vibe. You like that's how you just sounded to me, dude. Yeah, Summer Eladrin makes a lot of sense for you. It's like, yeah, I guess so. I guess. I just love fire. I love fire as a metaphor and as a really cool narrative element. So I wanted to embody the flame, for that campaign. D&D. Mia says, what about the pretty shell island rock place? I don't know. It's kind of a placeholder. So yeah, if we kind of go there, if we look, I don't know what this is. I'm just still kind of figuring this stuff out. This is very much like a work in progress in terms of a city thing. And, again, to be honest, I haven't really ever painted a city like this before, in this kind of cool top-down three-quarter. It feels super cool. Like, I like the idea that, I could paint a map like this and there would be little markers and you could click on them and zoom in and all that stuff. It's kind of dope. So that's kind of a cool jam I'm going for here. But yeah, I'm just kind of trying stuff out. Like, what if there was a gigantic shell? What if there was a gigantic thing? I'm kind of like, you sort of messing around with that. A sub theme of this world, like the kind of B plot, there's the city plot, with which is what's going on in the city, and the B plot is kind of like what's going on in the ocean, because you can't go in this ocean, man. Like, you will be swallowed within minutes. Some kind of gigantic creature is going to come eat you. So thalassophobia is like a main character of the story for sure. Apologies for those of you who have played Subnautica and are forever scarred, myself included. But yeah, so far no plans for that location. I might end up repainting that and trying some other stuff. I'm still figuring things out. Aurora says highly recommend Gabriel's courses. Oh, dude, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I've done like, this would be my 6th one, I think. So I'm getting the hang of it, man. I'll tell you that much. Bilge says hello. Hello, Bilge. Dobby is free. Hello, Dobby is free. Good to see you. Cool. Yeah, the no camera stream, man. Yeah, sorry for not having my camera up, guys. I don't know, I just blanked on it, I guess. I have to find my I have a particular cord I use, and I don't know where I put that cord. I think it's like in my carry-on suitcase. Do you guys ever have one of those months where it's like you're just not ever in one spot for like more than a week or something? I've definitely had one of those months for sure. I ended up visiting home in Bermuda for a little bit, which is actually where I streamed from last, which is why the audio is so busted on that last one. But I ended up streaming from Bermuda last time, and that was fun. That was cool. I was amazed I could actually do it. It was pretty much a miracle. But yeah, I went there to help my family with some stuff, and then I had to come back to New York for other stuff, and then I had to go back there again in about a week. So it's a lot of stuff, I'll tell you that much. It's a whole lot of flights and travel and this and that. And speaking of, I have to message someone about something quite important. Ba ba ba. Ba 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 ba. Okay. Yeah. So this cockpit, man, I'm feeling something kind of cool. Like, I'm feeling something kind of interesting here. Like, I want to do some weird like pulleys and stuff. So I feel like I should stack some of these assets a little bit more mindfully and not just one layer paint the whole thing. You know, you want to have some elements of structure to your process. I've definitely transitioned to working a lot more destructively than I used to, which has been honestly very freeing. It's been super fun. I've been jamming, enjoying that a lot. 10 out of 10 would recommend working extremely destructively and just messing up your file. Commit, damn it, commit is what I say to you, sir. So yeah, so that's been fun. Yeah, been a whole lot of fun. I want to do some really cool effects for these eyepieces. One thing I want to try is I want to try to paint like in a really weirdly magnified way. Like how in some sort of lenses, like you have really weird sort of like bent out, strange looking, you know, whatever the heck you're looking at. Yeah, I've definitely never painted something like this before, like a kind of magnified interior lens. So we'll see how it goes, you know? So much of concept art is just learning on the job. You're just kind of going like, all right, let's try and paint this. It's like, nope, okay, what went wrong? What worked, you know? So much of it is just learning on the job and figuring out what looks good and what doesn't look good. Okay. Ba-ba-ba. Miasis the Ancient Primordials. Exactly. Starlight Productions says hi. Hello, Starlight Productions. Charlie Production says, do you know how to break into the art industry? Well, the art industry is not a thing. You can be, try and work as an illustrator where you're kind of making visual art, which there's many different ways you could be an illustrator. You can do editorial illustration for magazine. You can do children's book illustration, narrative illustration. There's many things you can do within the world of illustration, seemingly limitless things. You could make web comics, you can do all that stuff. If you, for instance, wanted to work in the design field, there's many areas in which you could pursue. A big popular one is definitely concept art for digital games, video games. That's a big one. A lot of people kind of like hone in on that one as a major focus. And then you have to ask yourself the question, well, what kind of designer do I want to be? And that's a very challenging question to answer. What kind of designer do you want to be? A lot of it has to do with genre. Do you like working in a particular genre like sci-fi? Do you like working in more of a fantastical fantasy genre? Are you able to do both? What kind of stories do you like working on in projects? Are they more kind of upbeat and positive? Do you think maybe you actually want to pivot towards something like animation, where you're probably going to need a different skill set now than the games one? Are you focusing? What kind of asset are you looking to deliver? Are you looking to deliver a design asset like a character concept or something, or maybe you want to explore a location? Those things are all very, very unique and very different. So the art industry isn't real. It's not a real idea. If you were to say, I really want to make a living as an artist, that's a completely, it's a maybe a better formatting for thought, because then it kind of doesn't mythologize this idea that there is this industry out there, this thing that you're gotta find the door to bang on. There's no real knowing what door to bang on. One thing I will say though, to answer that question in a more direct way, beyond just kind of examining the question, an actual answer to that question, the way you break into the art industry is to make sure that your art actually is providing the value you want it to provide. So what that looks like is, if for instance you want to be a designer for like something in entertainment, like a game or something like that, or you want to develop assets for some kind of animated project or something, what you really want to make sure is that your art is able to provide a level of value that actually warrants someone paying you. Another thing is that typically no one wants to hire someone that they're going to pay like maybe not very much to do maybe a poor job. So there aren't really any entry-level jobs in art these days that I know of. I could be wrong about that, but what I've been kind of hearing is that studios are not really going to hire you for like minimum wage or anything. They want to bring someone on who already has the skills and who can just actually provide the service they want. Because the weird thing about art is that it's not this thing that you can do. Like, it's not this thing that maybe you're not that good at it, but it's kind of like, stacking boxes requires, bodily strength. You can maybe stack half as many boxes as somebody else and you're still stacking boxes. So maybe you'll get paid half as much. But art is different because there's no stacking half as many boxes. You just can't do it. And what you hand in is not a value and cannot actually, it does not fulfill the service that the employer requires, So in that way, you just can't do the job. So you're not going to get hired. It's a very simple equation. So the way you break into any professional field in art is to make sure that your work is good. Like, that's just number one priority, which at the bare minimum means that your work is not blatantly incorrect and like just blatantly kind of wrong, if that makes sense. So what does that mean? Well, if you're making like really big fundamental mistakes, then that's kind of a very worrying sign for any employer, any art director who's hiring. I don't think that, people want to hire somebody who is just making a ton of mistakes. So what's really hard is that initial step of getting to a point where your work is not bad. I think that's the hardest thing to do as an aspiring artist, is to get to the point where your art is not actively like bad, you know? I talked about this a lot on the last stream, so if you want some more thoughts, you can check that out for sure. I'm not going to talk about it too much, just because usually pretty much every single live stream someone asks that question, which I guess is good because I'm learning how to answer it with greater clarity and calmness each time, which is nice. So yeah, I guess it's fine to keep asking that question, but that's what I would say to that, is that there is no such thing as the art industry, and that if you want to be a professional at something in the creative field, your work has to actually serve the purpose, which means it really can't afford to be actively incorrect and wrong, and it needs to be good. So work really, really hard on your fundamental art skills and make sure that you can produce things that are serving a strong purpose and doing so successfully. And then usually, people find you. Honestly, like when it comes to art, I've never really had to bang on any doors. Usually employers reach out to me for freelance stuff back when I was doing more freelance. So it's kind of like, also it was easier. It was a few years ago when, freelancing was a lot easier. There's a lot more stuff happening during the that era where everybody was inside, I hope that helps. Carbon says, "Oh my glob, howdy, how's everybody doing?" Doing great, man. Hope you're doing well as well, Carbon. Mia says, "Nope, not wrong." I guess so. Dobby says, "I'm loving this crabby boy." Yeah, me too. I really like this design a lot. I'm having so much fun with it. Mia says, "Yeah, and be able to look at your art objectively. A must develop skill." Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Aurora says, "People hire artists. Appealing art gets sold, but what is appealing can be dynamic." It's true. Bilge says, "Is AI used much in the industry right now?" There have been a lot of layoffs lately. Well, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it from an artificial intelligence perspective. You can look at it from a economic perspective, where things are just not too good right now, if we're being honest. So that can be a little bit of a problem too, I suppose, that things are just rough in the world currently. I can't really speak to that, to be honest, because I'm not in the big studios. I haven't worked in the big studios in-house or anything. And what I'll tell you is that early on in the development of artificial intelligence, in terms of generative artistic artificial intelligence, I did get interviewed for a spot that was making a trailer for a game, and they wanted to make sure that I knew all of the current AI tools to be able to work quickly by using the AI tools to help develop the matte painting imagery for this game trailer, which they ended up not going forward with it, and things kind of changed, and I never ended up doing it. But that was something that involved AI that I was, almost a part of, I guess. Yeah. So, I mean, I could definitely tell you that they're trying, people are trying, and people always try with that stuff. Ba, ba, ba. Dobby says, "Would highly recommend watching back through his streams. I do it while drawing and it's so good." Oh, thanks, dude. Carbon says, "Hey, Gabriel, what work are you generally doing these days?" Good question, man. Honestly, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. I was definitely doing a ton of teaching before. I was, primarily doing teaching, actually, for like a long time, which has been like such an amazing gift. I did some conventions last year, which was fun. I did Lightbox. That was really fun. So that brought in some capital, I suppose. But generally speaking, I've actually been avoiding freelancing these days. I am trying to currently focus on getting back to my main focus, I suppose. Yeah, focusing on getting back to my main focus, which is just like story and getting unbelievably good at storytelling and design. So that's kind of what I've been doing. It's been a lot of like personal stuff, I guess. But yeah, primarily I've been in an educational position. The students kind of just keep coming, man. Like when when one student, when it's time for them to move on, and I've been mentoring them for a little bit, and they want to move on. Usually another one is in my email, asking questions and asking about mentorship. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of one-on-one mentorship, and I've been doing a lot of classes, which like the one I'm doing in November, in a month's time. So yeah, I've been doing a bunch of teaching just because, kind of honestly, like it just kind of keeps working. So I really like it too. Like I like it way more than dealing with clients, man. Clients are kind of the worst. I'm not going to lie to you. Uh, and I love drawing and I love design. It's like my absolute obsession. Are you kidding me? So it's just been an absolute blast to teach. It's like, turns out it's kind of my calling, is to teach. So yeah, that's been my primary area of focus. I'm trying to be the best art educator ever. That's like currently my goal. Yeah, and I'm currently working on figuring out how I can scale it to impact the largest group of people possible. We did a big free shape design workshop for all the subscribers because I hit 10K, which was like insane. I just can't tell you how excited that made me when I hit 10K. I'm like, I just can't even believe it. So far beyond what I thought I could achieve on YouTube. It's just amazing. And yeah, so hit 10K, and then I decided to offer a free shape design workshop to all the subscribers. So everybody hopped in. It was a really great success. I got a lot of really good feedback from people because I was kind of asking, a lot of the international folks and people who kind of like couldn't make it to the classes, but obviously this was free. They can make it to this. I kind of asked them like, hey, like what barriers are you facing right now in your kind of artistic journey? And everybody basically said currency conversion. Like they just cannot take any classes in the US. They just can't do it because they're so expensive. And that's really hard to hear, man, because I was also at some point like a young kind of broke art student trying to figure out how to get good. I went to art school in the UK because it was so much cheaper than going to art school in the States, and I could do that. And I'm so lucky to have been able to go and study at an institution. It's like amazing. But not everybody has that opportunity, and a lot of people just learn online, which I could never really, figure out how to do. University is one thing because they have a lot of systems in place to allow you to pay for that and go do that. But for online stuff, it's a little bit different. You can't really get a scholarship to do online stuff. And, like family is a little bit maybe more reticent to support you in like learning, for instance, online with like a professional online. So the online stuff is like, it can be hard for like folks, especially who are overseas. And that was a big goal of mine, was try and make stuff accessible for people overseas. Even the 4-week class I'm doing next week, dude, I only price admission at $200 US. That's $50 a week for like 8 lectures, feedback sessions. It's like going to be crazy in depth. Like this is criminally underpriced. And even that, I was talking to these guys, even that was not doable. So clearly there's just kind of a disconnect between quality art education and people's ability to learn. And I'm really trying to figure out like how on earth can I make stuff more available for people? Like how can I make things available for people, and how can I do that while also, this is another thing, is that I live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. I live in New York City. So I at the end of the day, I can't do things for free because then I can't live. So it's like crazy. Carbon says, if the payment is broken up, it's generally easier. Yeah. I mean, a ton of people ask me, can I do a payment plan? And every time I say yes. So actually I've had many students do payment plans, which has been great. I have not been burned yet with the payment plan thing. So, yeah, if you guys are in need of that, obviously it's a little bit more complex on my end, a lot more admin stuff, but again, I'm happy to accommodate. But yeah, so that's kind of my current focus, is how can we actually get the information to people? Because man, what you can learn in like 3 weeks in a class, it can set you up for like a hot streak of learning, because obviously you're not going to transform after one class. Nobody is expecting to become a completely different artist in one class. And if you are, it's like, you need to learn the hard way that that's just not going to happen. However, what it does do is it sets you up with a big burst of new knowledge to just fill all the cracks in your foundation with that new knowledge and just really get active. And it's a massive, massive boost to your development. It's like huge. So again, me trying to think like, how can I do this? How can I make this available for people? What is the plan? Ayla says, I'm trying to self-study while I work up money to /skill to afford mentorship. Fundamentals are key before an expensive class becomes worth it. It's true. I think the most important thing before you take any class, even beyond fundamentals, is actually just mileage. Like just draw a ton. Like make sure that you are showing up with a lot of drawing experience, even if it's like, not the best drawing in the world. Just draw a ton. I've noticed that people who have a high volume of like experience, like they've just drawn a ton, not saying you have to draw for like 10 hours a day, blah, blah, blah. But if you sit down and draw a little bit every day, like you'll build up mileage really quick. But yeah, if you build up that kind of experience, your ability to absorb new information really, really is quick. Like I've had some students who just really explode, and it's kind of incredible. It's really cool. But yeah, it's hard out here, man. Also, another thing that's challenging is that art is, I think, one of the coolest things ever. And right now in the world, people don't they don't let art be this cool, amazing, fun, incredible thing. It's like they take this cool, really fun thing, and they just immediately shove it into the, like putting a square peg through a round hole. They just like shove it into this, like, this will be my career. This has to be my career. It's like, I don't know if you've done enough art to know if you want that to be your entire life's career. Like you gotta really like drawing every day, and you got to really be okay with drawing things you don't want to draw, which I learned was really hard for me, man. It was really hard to draw things that I thought were bad, let's say. It was a real challenge. It's not an easy realization. But we're talking about art education again. We're talking about career stuff. No, we got to talk about crab. Anyway. Carbon says, yeah, I was going to do a manga creating course, but the initial entrance fee was quite large. But they provide really good mentorship with actual mangakas. That's cool. That will work with you weekly. Oh, that's sick. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, to wrap it up, I honestly, guys, I really try to keep things affordable. Like, I really, really do. And I want this to be kind of my full-time thing. Like I'd love to be teaching full-time. It's just not looking like I can keep things affordable and also do it full-time. So I'm trying to figure out my options right now, if I'm being honest. Like I'm trying to figure out like what I can do, and, to support myself. And, now I have someone in my life who, like needs me, which I haven't had. It's all fun and games kind of being a loner boy, who is not in love, living at home with the fam, or even not living at home, but just being kind of solo too. Now there's someone in your life, and like you're kind of co-supporting each other, but like my girlfriend's in school right now, so it's like there's in terms of doing things together, it's I would like to be doing more. So in order for me to be doing more, obviously you have to bring in more. So I'm split currently between monetizing, split with like access, making things more accessible for people, which is at the end of the day, in my opinion, the most important thing. Like, because you need someone in your corner, man. You need someone in your corner, like you just do. And it's if you don't have someone in your corner, it's just that it just takes you so long, man. It takes things so long. Chris Turner says, will you ever do a pre-recorded class or workshop? You know, I have like material from about like 5 classes that I could cut into a pre-recorded thing in theory. Like I could put up the recordings from past classes. I could do that for sure. Pricing. I have no idea what to price it at. No clue. Who knows? Mia says, will you do a full interior for Crab? I'm terrible at mechanical design. I don't think I'll do a full interior. I also am terrible at mechanical design. What I'm doing here is like the world's laziest mech design. I'm doing like the world's most simple mech design. Yeah, I'm honestly like, I'm cutting a lot of corners, but it looks convincing enough, right? Like you believe it, you believed it, so it worked. All they have to do is believe it, guys. That's all they have to do. But yeah, I do want to release some of the pre-recorded stuff. That's something I want to do for sure. Dobby says, love the rendering on the Krabby Boy. It looks crispy. Yeah, a lot of it is just kind of value control. So like if we go black and white, the one thing to kind of make a note of is that for the most part, things are like pretty smooth, but whenever you have a highlight, it's a pretty distinct value and it's not white. It's actually very far from white. If we put white here, it looks very intense, but the highlights are their own very distinct value here. Same with the shadows in certain areas. Like this is a very distinct shadow value. So the value control on the highlights and stuff really kind of make the rendering look better than it even is, you know? So that's a cool trick for you guys, is that you want to control your lights and darks to be very distinct. That doesn't mean you go high contrast, but it means that there is contrast, enough contrast to be distinct, right? Whammo blammo, baby. Let's go. Carbon says your courses are priced well. In your opinion, from previous experiences, what are these crabs? For what function in the world? Yeah, I did a big lore drop on what the crabs are for. They're essentially debris clearing for the fish world island that we're set on. So when the boardwalk is kind of swept away or destroyed by a storm, the Crab-Mechs will come in and they will clear the debris. But also, who knows? They may serve some other purpose, you know, in the future. We'll have to see what kind of purpose these Crab-Mechs form. I gotta say, I love the guy on the hood up here who's sitting up here eating his little meal. I love this. This is so sick. This is like some of my favorite stuff. Like those little storytelling things. I just love it so much. It's so cool. But yeah, I don't know if I'll do a full interior. Damn, wait, I rendered this quick. This whole thing? Whoa, I didn't even really notice that. The heck? That's crazy. That's crazy. All right, let's check by flipping. Guys, always flip your canvas. If you don't flip your canvas, you will be cooked. You'll be cooked through. Yeah, man. Dude, I'm so excited about art these days. Art is such a blessing to my life. It's like the best thing ever. I'm so lucky that I like know how much I love art. It's so cool. This looks kind of like a magnified lens, right? That's kind of what that looks like, sort of. We're just gonna agree with me on that. We're just gonna agree with me. Bam. Wham balam. Yeah, man, my main goal in all of this is just to get you guys drawing, dude. Drawing is so fun, you know? And like, if you really put in the work, you'll get really good. you know? And if you get really good, you can just draw whatever you want. There's nothing quite as fun as being able to draw whatever you want. Being able to draw whatever you want is like the coolest thing on earth, man. It's so cool, like meeting like normies who don't really know much about art, and they're like, "Oh, let me see your art," and like I pull it up, and they're like, "Whoa, what the heck?" And like all the different things you can do, and all the styles you can do, and like you can paint, you can do things simple, you can be kind of comic-y, and like just having a really strong foundation and just kind of like showing people, it's really cool. I was doing some live drawing for some family friends recently, and they were like, "What the hell?" Like, because obviously you're drawing things pretty quick, and they're like, "What? How did you? Oh, you're so talented." And I was like, "Talented?" Triggered. I was like, "Talented." Man, I'm such a crusader, dude. Whenever someone says that to me, I'm like, all right, it's time to destroy you. It's time to end your whole vibe. So they were like, your talent is crazy. I'm like, my talent. And I break down every single decision I made. And I explain, like, I was drawing a person. So I'm like, this is the anatomy of this. This is how it works. This is the hinges of the body. This, that. This is why I'm doing these lines. I'm going thin here and thick here for this purpose, blah, 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 blah. Like, I broke down everything. I broke down how the light worked. I broke down everything like that, you know? And I was kind of like, listen, man, like, I can teach you how to draw in like 3 weeks and you'll be able to draw, you know? But it would take you like decades to be where I'm at right now. And I love it. I love it a lot. I love going into that stuff. You know, it's cool. You know, it's pros and cons of demystifying, you know, because if you're selling art to people, you kind of want them to be mystified. You kind of want them to believe it's just talent. If they know that it's like practiced skill, then it's almost like, it can almost be like oppressive. The weight of, you know, their ineptitude can almost be oppressive. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the vibe, dude. It's the vibe. Ba, 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 ba. Rolk says, "Hey, I just joined. And this looks so good. How's your process? Often with these, I'll show you in just a sec." Bilge says, "Lol." Dude, me too, buddy. Me too. Chris Turner says, "I love drawing, but I don't feel like I fully grasped the fundamentals." Buddy, you never will. Lifelong pursuit, baby. That's why it's so great, is because it never ends. Like, there's no end to art. You'll just keep going. You'll just keep getting better. It's like cool. Like literally no end. Like infinite potential. It's kind of amazing. It's like my favorite thing about art. It's why I chose art, because there's no ceiling, you know? Carbon says, "I got a free workshop mentorship with 2 page spread comic a couple of weeks ago. It was a good challenge that pushed me to finish a work and make those 2 pages as good as possible." Dude, that's awesome. That's a really great thing, being pushed to finish something, even if it's small. Mason Alexander Stanley says, "Haven't been able to catch your stream lately. You're streaming a while. Hi, Gabriel." Hello, Mason Alexander Stanley. I'm so happy to have you in the chat, dude. What's going on? Inhus Art says, "Any tips on how to learn how to lay out a page to present designs properly?" Well, you just want to make sure everything's clear. I think like clarity is the most important element when you're presenting. Like, obviously this isn't a finished page. Do I have a finished page somewhere here? Yeah, this is a fun one. So like, here's a good example of a finished page of some sci-fi design I did not too long ago. This is a 21:9, so super wide aspect ratio. But what's cool about this is that there's kind of the primary read, which is gigantic creature. You know, secondary read is, let's take a closer look at this gigantic creature. And there's also this cool weird thing, and there's text here. And then the kind of third read, which is you kind of get to investigate, where you get to really explore all the little tendrils and the rendering, and it kind of moves your eye across the page and all that stuff. So as long as your idea is clear, then that's a good sign. I think I have another one on this page too that we can look at. Yeah, this one as well is like, you have that primary read of like, ooh, freaky sci-fi guys. You get that initial sort of like, whoa, figures on a page. You want things to just be very clear. You don't want things to be visually confusing. Your taste is going to improve over time for this kind of thing. Yeah, you'll kind of continue to develop your process of how you like to lay out pages. It's very individual. Good examples and good inspiration is you can look at like editorial magazines and stuff, and you can look at what you see kind of on ArtStation and figure out how to break things up into different sections. So yeah, that's a fun one. Mason says, great. I'm designing costumes for a film and TV pilot at the moment, so very busy. Dude, that's awesome. Heck yeah, dude. Hope it goes well. In terms of process for this, I started with a challenge in the Patreon Discord with the patrons, where I started with these as references, like this weird brass candle guy, and this crab, obviously, and this space astronaut suit, which is super cool. I love how this looks. And then I started to bash these ideas together, just quickly blocked out the crab shape, only just using like 3 values, basically. Just a neutral value for the local value, the shadow, and some kind of, or a dark tone to kind of show dark shapes, and then some shadow value to describe form. And then I moved on and added some kind of copper sort of tones to kind of match the copper reference. And then I added in some more details, figured out like, you know what? Yeah, I think the back is kind of maybe padded in this way. Then I added on the oxidized copper. So basically what that looked like is just kind of painting and using texture to kind of describe some of these details and kind of tighten everything up. But all the foundational material and information is already there, And then I just kind of kept pushing it until we landed where we are with this version, where it's very, very painted. And I really like how it's going. I like it a lot. It's cool. So yeah, that's my process, kind of starting with an idea and kind of just pushing it one step at a time until we get something cool. Bilge says, this might be more of a psychological question, but how does the instinct to compare yourself to others disappear when you're ambitious in art? How does the instinct to compare yourself to others disappear? Oh, it never disappears, dude. Ever. Also, that is more of a blessing than you realize. Like, I think that there's a popular phrase, which is that comparison is the thief of joy. And to the degree that that is true, it is true, right? When you compare yourself to others and you put yourself down in the face of someone else's success, that does have a negative outcome. It really demoralizes you and it makes you feel perhaps less than you actually are. On the other hand, comparing yourself to others is obviously, like many things, a double-edged sword, right? What it can do is, and this is only if you have a very strong, like, constitution in yourself, in your heart. Like if you yourself are a strong person, which I kind of really recommend everyone aspire to be a strong person. If you are like a strong person, let's say, and you want to do good in the world, which I personally believe all people deep down want to do. Everybody wants to make the world a better place, like at the end of the day, man, if you can improve things, you would, and if you could, if you had a path, So in that way, I think that with that framing and that mindset, you can kind of take a look at your current position, let's say with art, and you can say, I want to do more with my work, which means I want to be better than I am. And better is like a very subjective term. In this case, we're going to use it as a catch-all for you. You want better quality art. You want it to be of a higher, technical quality. You want it to be of a higher substance. So you want the idea to be of a higher quality too. And you want its purpose to be lofty as well. So you want all of those things to exist. You want a lofty purpose, a high quality, and you want it to be very, very successful in its purpose. So if you look from that perspective and you look at somebody who is perhaps a little farther along than you, you will end up, rather than kind of feeling bad that you're not as good, it will light a fire in you that kind of goes, oh, I can get there. There's another, there's another door I can run towards. There's another threshold I can cross. There's another thing I can perfect and strive to master. It's a very, very different energy than the energy of the kind of thinking in more of a deficit mindset of like, I'm not good. It's like, I can get better. That's way better, right? And again, the intention isn't for you to become a good artist. The intention is for you to actually positively affect people in the world with the work that you do. That's the goal. That's why all of us love Miyazaki films. We want to make good art. We want to make art that means something, that has an impact on people in a real way. We don't want to just be technically good. That's not enough for the human being to be technically good. And I can tell you for a fact, everyone I know who gets technically good, the excitedness lasts only so long, man, until it fades. Getting technically good is just another thing in life. It's like you go to the gym, you're going to get strong. Duh, But it's a very big difference between like a real athlete and just some guy who wants to get big muscles, It's just a very different thing. One is stuck in a cycle of shame because they don't understand their place in the world, and the other is actually working towards a purpose. So, oh, by the way, big disclaimer, guys. This is all my opinion, so scrutiny, please, scrutinize, pinch of salt, all that good stuff. I am not a psychologist, and I am not trained in therapy or dealing with people or anything like that. I'm just sharing from my personal experience and my viewpoint on life and the world, and what I know to be true based on my experience. But that is it. It is my experience, man. By no means am I trying to imply that what I'm saying is absolutely actual factual. But yeah, I do believe that everyone does want to do good in the world, and if you position yourself in that mentality, there is no negativity when you're comparing yourself to others. There's only inspiration and excitement. And another thing is, like, I started doing this thing where when I started feeling a little bit more self-conscious about my art skill, because it happens to every artist at different stages in their art journey, right? Where for me, I was transitioning out of, being in art school, being in more of a enclosed environment, to all of a sudden being in the world. You're out in the world, and your competition isn't like the people in your class, which is like super easy because no one's motivated, and everybody's just like there because they think they have to go to art school or whatever, and no one's actually trying hard, and they think it's all about talent and rah, rah, rah. Anyway, go through that process, and you end up on the other side kind of maybe believing you're a little bit better than you are because you've been in this position where you've been around people who have not been taking it as seriously as you. So you think maybe you're pretty good. And I thought I was pretty good, when I was a few years ago. And you enter into the big wide world, and all of a sudden it's like age doesn't matter. And, your immediate surroundings don't matter. It's like you're going online, you're looking at the best artists, and you're all of a sudden like, oh, this is the arena I'm entering. Someone asked earlier, how do you break into the art industry? And it's like, there are unbelievably skilled artists who have been working on this their entire life, and they're still working full time in the industry. So that's kind of your competition in a way, you know what I mean? So for me, when I kind of got back into or when I started to kind of clue in on the fact like, oh, I gotta push myself more, and I actually am not, maybe as good as I thought I was, and I actually have a lot of gaps and this and that. When that was kind of setting in, I had that like, oh God, I'll never be this person, and oh, I didn't even know about this when I was young, and they clearly had like a tutor, or they went in like the LA artist pipeline, like they got feeder schooled into, whatever, you know what I mean? I mean, you look at like these unbelievably skilled and hardworking and wonderful people like Ari Pan and Thomas Chamberlain Keane, and like some really extraordinary artists who like just really great attitude, really hardworking, supportive family, like their life just rules. And you look at that and you're like, gosh darn it, like why? Like why? Like why was I in the position where I was like managing my parents' emotions so they wouldn't, like explode? Like why couldn't I have just had stable parents who, put me in art classes like these guys? Why, and you have that feeling of that kind of like loss, or that feeling of, oh, what could have been, um, But then you kind of realize, like, dude, this is life, man. Life isn't about, like being the absolute inherent best ever, blah 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 blah. Life isn't about that. That's ridiculous. What are you talking about, dude? Who told you that? Whoever told you that is an absolute fool. Another thing that you should really check on in yourself is if anything in your mind is like, oh dear, is my connection off currently? Uh-oh. Oh, can you guys hear me? Hello? I hope you guys can hear me. Well, I guess I'll just keep going, I suppose. Okay, cool, 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 cool. Oh, stream wasn't paused. I just think I was just not drawing, I'm pretty sure. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, do a little audit and make sure that if any of your opinions in your mind are coming from some kind of like high school teacher or like family member or something like that, just remember that that is just a guy who does not know anything. Like really, like not being, over the top here. Like these people don't know anything. It's hilarious how incompetent these individuals are, man. At least in the West, in the US, like there's a major teacher shortage. Like they will hire anybody and they are not competent people. The reason they're not competent people is because our education system to train teachers is also run by incompetent people. So it's a cycle of incompetence that hopefully one day will be broken by some miracle, by some saint who comes along and says, I'm going to do it all over again, then maybe we'll have some competency. But until then, just remember, man, these people, they're just regular people and they just could not be more out of touch. And I say that because, I realized when I was younger, I was fighting so hard against these narratives, so hard, especially these narratives when I was young, these people who are like, oh, don't go into art, you're going to be a starving artist. Oh, don't go into this, you're going to do that. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, blah, 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 blah. And just having opinions on things that not only they don't know anything about, but they also have no idea how to actually be supportive to someone who's aspiring as an artist. You know what I mean? If someone said, hey, by the way, I want to go to Harvard Law School, they won't get told, oh man, it's probably not going to work out and then you'll be a starving law guy. They don't say that. What they say is, oh, that's extraordinarily challenging. You have to work very hard every day of your life and maybe it'll work out. But even if you don't end up at Harvard Law, going through all of that, you'll still do great because you worked so hard. You did a really good job. And you'll end up in a good spot regardless, right? That's what people say to somebody who says, I want to be a Harvard Law student. If you say, I want to be a visual artist, immediately getting hit with the narrative of like, oh, you're going to be a starving artist. It's like, oh, it's feast or famine. And what decides it is fate. That's how it's pitched to people, is that, oh, you want to be an artist? You better get really lucky. That's what they say. So there's all of these artists online who are like, well, I'm just waiting for a chance. I'm waiting for a chance to break in. I want to break in. Give me a chance so I can break in. You look at their portfolio, they have no idea what they're doing. Like literally no idea. And it's like someone knocking on the door of Harvard and saying, I want to go to your law school. Please give me a chance. It's like you'd fail out in the first week. Dude, this is just a repeat of last stream. I'm totally just popping off right now. It's just maybe not so good. But you have these artists who are like, just give me a chance. I want to break in. It's like, dude, you can't even draw, dude. Like you actually can't. Like maybe you really want to be able to draw and you have an aspiration. You really want to be a good artist, but you're just not there, man. And the reason you're not there is because it's honestly no fault of your own, if I'm being completely honest. You were sold the idea that it's all talent, number one. even if you corrected that later on with your own clarity of mind and you said, actually, I know it's not talent, I know it's hard work, the narrative still lives. The creature is alive, and it's like a total poison because you'll still expect your drawings to just magically be good out of nowhere, because of this sense of specialness that maybe you feel or that you want to feel or something like that. There's also another problem where maybe in secondary school, let's say in high school, for our Westerners, or Americans, in secondary school or high school, you were probably the best artist around, you know? But it's kind of like, you got to remember, art education in secondary school is so bad, like so unbelievably bad, like really bad, that the fact that you're the best, it's not actually like the most, mind bending or world breaking thing. It's like, yeah, it kind of makes sense that you're the best. You're kind of just the only one who draws regularly. Of course, you're going to be better than people, but it is by no means actually optimizing your sense of skill. Like, for instance, in like English or in like physics or math or something, you are actually really being tested. Like, you are being tested. You will get docked marks if you make a grammatical mistake or a structural mistake, or if you make a mistake in maths, for instance. Like, you will just be incorrect. It'll be wrong. In art, you can just get by doing whatever the hell. Like, no one's actually looking over your shoulder and going, no, man, these tangents are really distracting from the central focus, because your art teacher is like some guy. Like, it's literally just some guy. Like, your art teacher is not like, even if they can kind of paint, it's like, again, there is no formal training. There's no system in place for you to become a master of something. It's like every single college has a law program. Every single institution has like these different programs, but the arts is like so unbelievably deficient. So then, you get a bunch of people who are like, yeah, I was the best in my class. It's like, oh, sick. Like, you were the fastest amongst the slowest people on earth. It's like, when you look at the quality bar you need to hit for these studios, it is so infinitesimally beyond where you are at, let's say. The metaphorical you, let's just say. So, it's hard. A lot of people, I get a lot of questions, like, how do I break in? I want to break in. Here's my portfolio, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, listen, man, you want to do this art thing. It's not that you got to want it. It's that you have to be doing it, regardless of if you want to be like, regardless of if you want it, you just have to be doing it. And you have to be working so hard. And again, think about that person who got into Harvard Law School. They studied so hard, dedicated themselves, really dedicated themselves. It's like, are you that dedicated to your artistic practice? Probably not. And again, it's probably because you're still in a mindset of, well, I have talent. I have creative talent. I was better than everyone else in my high school. I was. Trust me, I'm good. Everyone in my family, everyone around me, I'm better than everyone around me. It's like, that's okay, man. You can be the best basketball player in your house, but you're not going to play in the NBA, and there's no school for joining the NBA. And those NBA players, it's like their family supporting them. They have a whole coaching system behind them. Usually they have a whole school behind them. You don't have anybody behind you. It's just you, dude. It's just you in a world that does not understand you. So have a little compassion for yourself, like have a little compassion for yourself, and kind of take a second to kind of go like, whoa, man, like, hang on a minute. Like what does it actually mean to have an art career? Do I want that to be my life? Is this going to be my life? If no one else is going to say it to you, if no one else is going to, sit there and say like, hey dude, like, by the way, getting really good at art is so unbelievably hard. It's not just really hard. It is beyond hard. It is like so challenging. The kind of things you're trying to understand are so complex and strange. On the one end, they seem totally linear and like totally, understandable and like, oh yeah, this makes sense. Perspective, I'm grids, I'm this, I'm that. And then it's like narrative appeal. What the hell even is that? You're drawing characters and like they need to look like they're actually feeling an emotion. What even is that? You've left the realm of technical drawing. Who are you? Can you empathize with a human being? You need to be able to empathize with a human being if you want to be like a real devoted character designer. You have to be an actor to be a character designer. So it's like, it's not just art, man. It's like, who are you, dude? What do you care about? What do you actually care about? Anyway, I see Ryan joined. He said, I see we're in preach mode. Oh, God. Anyway, like I care about you guys, man. And like, I don't, you don't want to see people just like walk into the line of fire and like continue this process of like, I see it every year, man. I go to Lightbox every year and there's always these fresh faces, it's like, oh man, I really want to get into a studio and I really want to do this and blah, blah, blah. It's every year, new group, and some of those people get hired and they get churned through the meat grinder, dude. Like through the meat grinder. They work you to the bone. Low pay, almost no benefits. You're cooked, dude. Now you hate art and you've been just like rendering blenders for like background animation on some TV show that sucks. It's like whoop-de-doo, dude. You're at DreamWorks. Sick. Or you work 6 months on something. They go, budget cuts. We got to axe this whole idea. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. Half a year of my one life on earth. Everything I produced for this 1 month. Gone. Vaporized. Destroyed. NDA, by the way. Can't share it. Don't talk to anyone about it. Don't show anyone anything. Dude. Crazy. It's crazy. Anyway. But again, what I want you guys to remember, is that no matter what the state of the art industry is, what the world looks like, how hard things look, all of that stuff, what you need to remember is that if you make extraordinarily beautiful artwork that is interesting, evocative, it reflects your interest in the world, it embodies who you are as a person, you're deeply committed to understanding what you're doing. You really want to crack these geodes and find what's inside, man. Like you want to know. You're on that quest. That's like your heart's quest. That's beyond all this world stuff, this whole world BS and that whole thing. So far beyond that, man. It's like your heart calls for devotion to the arts. That is your life. That is what you are championing. That's what I'm championing, man. And seriously, if you make extraordinarily cool work and you work to be devoted to that level of quality, things are going to go in a unique direction, no matter what, I mean, I just started randomly posting on YouTube and like, what are we even at now? Dude, yeah, we're like 10,500 subscribers. That's insane. 10,500 people watch the video and we're like, oh yeah, dude, I want to see more of this. This is cool. I'm not going to say this rules. I don't know if anybody thinks it rules, but dude, I care about this stuff, man. I care about art. I care about these ideas a lot. I'm really devoted. I care a lot. Like this is a lifelong thing for me. Like there's no, there's no partial, I'm all in, man. I've been all in since day one. So like, look at the success stories that are around you. It's not just the art industry. There's so much in the art world that you can do. There's so many different things you can do. It's not just concept art. That's just everybody who's talking on YouTube or concept artists. Like don't get sucked into the world that's the only thing that exists ever is this animation and games industry. They want you to think that's the only thing you can do. They want you to try your darndest to get into their studio so they can use all your creative ideas, burn you out, and then lay you off. Dude, I watched over the past couple of years, some of the most incredibly talented and skilled artists I know all get laid off, and it's just for corporate profits. It's for no reason other than just corporate profits. It's like, you want to go work for those guys? You want to go to bat for those guys? Hell no, dude. Not ever. Not ever, dude. Not even a little bit. There's only one project I would take right now, and it would be the Riot MMO. If I got on the Riot MMO, I would take that job. But any other job, dude. Any other one, hell no. Anyway, yeah, that's a bit of a rant for you guys, but you know, figure out what you actually care about. Like, really, really figure that out and do an audit in your mind. What lives there? Because I was rebelling against things that people said to me coming from the most ignorant, just like brain deficient individuals on the planet who were talking to me about what I should be doing with my life. And I was at an impressionable age when they were talking to me, and maybe I was rebelling against them. But I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, what the hell am I even doing with this narrative in my mind that came from someone so underdeveloped, like so intellectually underdeveloped, And that's not to be like overly cruel towards, people who I was around during my, secondary education and all that stuff. But it's like, my God, like you're going to lecture me. You're going to talk to me. Ridiculous, dude. Ridiculous. Anyway, so I've had to do a big purge on all that stuff, and really kind of figure out, and this whole thing sparked off because someone mentioned like comparing yourself to others and kind of the split between that being a positive thing and that being a negative thing. And it's a negative thing when I am in that place of insecurity and but like subconsciously believing in talent. That's when it hurts me to compare myself to others. But when I am actually seated in reality and I'm in a spot where I can really with clarity say like I am fulfilling like my heart's purpose, which is to, put positivity into the world, put good things into the world, engage people with unique and interesting ideas, and also like really teach as much as I possibly can to people who just didn't have the opportunity to learn what I've learned in my life. Like I've been in a very fortunate position that, I am a very sociable person. So I talk to a lot of people. And so much of what I've learned is out of the generosity of really amazingly skilled, talented professionals who took the time to slow down and walk me through really core concepts when I was like working up to a professional level. And so the least I can do with, having that capacity for reaching out and talking to people and asking questions, being able to, really get in there and learn this stuff is that I can relay it to you and I can, give back from all the knowledge that I've learned to you. Especially because like there's just such a deficit of good information and, people talk a big game about how great it is and how easy it is to learn online. I just don't buy it for a second, dude. If it was so easy and so great to learn online, like we would not be having these problems that we have. Like it would not look like this. Anyway, okay. Intensity over. We're gonna take a deep breath. We're gonna take a very deep breath. We're gonna chill out. We're gonna vibe. We're vibing. Now we're vibing. Heck yeah. But yeah, comparison is like beautiful if you can maintain your sense of your mission. Like if you know what your mission is, you'll be okay comparing yourself. So it's usually not the act, but the framing around the act that's the problem when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like people are always like, perfectionism is bad. It's like, no, not necessarily. Like devotion to quality is not bad. Being anxious about what people are going to think of you, that is maybe not a good way to obsess over quality. But making sure that your story is like real and true and honest, that's not a bad form of perfectionism. That's you doing due diligence to the craft that you've devoted yourself to. All right, let's look at the chat. Carbon says a page of work looks different to everyone. People who don't do art see it as a piece of paper, but an artist really take in what the page has to bring. It's true. Ryan says, I appreciate you, dog. A real one. Dude, you're a real one, dog. We're all just real, factual dogs. Brain deficient is crazy. Yeah, I apologize for the brain deficient little label. I apologize to my past educators in my life for that one. Good God. Oh, man. Bilge says, I worked in the game industry in my country for nearly 4 years as a concept artist and eventually suffered a terrible burnout. They really melt your ideas and expect you to be creative all the time. Dude, it's just insanity. Nab says, let's talk about awesome crab facts now. So true. Bill says, thank you so much, by the way. Oh, dude, of course, man. Of course. Jake says, crab fact number 1. They're very cool. It's true. They are cool, man. Deep breaths and crab facts. Let's go. Neil says, do you have any good courses or materials for learning to draw and paint mechs and vehicles? I've been learning to be a character illustrator until now, but I want to learn how to draw mechs. Neil says, I know good fundamentals is a given. Perspective, shape, form, absolutely necessary by default. So I don't actually have any personal materials on mech design stuff. Honestly, I would not consider myself an expert on mechs. One thing you can do to understand mechs, which is kind of sick, is that first, just to understand that the human body itself is a bit of a mech in and of itself, just by nature of how it's constructed. So what's cool about the human body is you have obviously the spine, you have hips, and you have some bones. So cool thing about bones is that they're rigid. They do not move. They are a solid object. So the way that these bones actually, well, the way that your body is able to move is by a series of fibers, muscle fibers, fascia, and whatnot. We're just going to ignore the feet for now. That connect your bones. There are ligaments, which are basically tendons that attach bone to bone. And there is tendons, which attach bone to muscle. So if you look at the human skeleton, it's honestly a pretty simple grouping, all things considered. This is a pretty bad skeletal sketch, but all things considered, it's pretty simple. You have essentially on the front here, you have the skull, where your head is, and that's 2 pieces: the bottom jaw and everything else, the cranial cap and your eye sockets and all that good stuff. We all know about the skeleton, right? So when we move down, obviously your spine connects your entire body. And the spine is cool because there are like 4 sections to the spine, which all do different things. The thickest part is your lumbar section, which is like really thick vertebrae, as opposed to some of the other sections, which are quite thin. And that, like, the entire weight of the body is on this section. So it's kind of naturally thick and braced. The other cool thing about or not the other cool thing, but other elements of the body is obviously you have the scapula or the shoulder blade, which goes behind. So it's like kind of behind over here. And that, again, connects the shoulder and the spine and all these different things. There's all these connective muscles. You don't really have to know all that stuff. Then you have your collarbone, which keeps everything in place on the front, also connects to your shoulder. And you have your arms, all that stuff. The most important thing when you're looking at the skeleton is not actually the amount of bones or all the muscles. It's actually the joints. The joints are the most important thing to know. So... oh, have we been stuck this whole time? No. Oh my gosh. We've been stuck. Can't believe you guys didn't tell me that. Ridiculous. This is crazy. This is crazy. Guys, I've been going this whole time. I made all this progress too over here. Look at how I painted this whole thing. Can't believe you guys didn't tell me that. I remember you guys told me that. I just didn't understand. Just chatting stream. Dude, so real. Sorry about that. Anyway, okay, skeleton. Yeah. So the thing about the skeleton is the bones are not as important as let's say the joints themselves. So the series of joints that you really want to pay attention to for the body is obviously the spine, which is a series of rigid, stacked bones that have an element of twist. So they have enough give that they have some twist and they have some like bend to them. So they can bend kind of forward and back. They can bend forward because it's like, and they can twist around. And again, that's kind of because there are all these little pieces that sort of each allow for a small amount of give that allow for a larger macro movement. So that's like the cool thing about the spine. However, with your body, it's a lot more, with the rest of the body, it's a lot more linear, right? So like the shoulder is a ball and socket joint. It can go up and down. It can go back and forward. Your elbow is a little bit different. Your elbow only has one range of motion, which is just up and down. So it only goes up and it only goes down. It does not go side to side. It does not go like back or anything like that. It's just up and down, no twist or anything. Even when you twist your hand up and down, it's actually these two bones in your forearm crossing each other. So that's what happens when you flip your hand back and forth, is it allows for some crossing, right? So, ba 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 ba. So yeah, the main thing to kind of make a note of here is that if you're doing a mech that is mimicking, let's say, the human skeletal structure, if you're drawing like a body shape, remember that the mech is not using fibers that contract and expand to create movement, right? Because the reason why your arm goes up and down is because fibers are contracting in your arm to pull those bones up and down. Like that's what's making it move, right? Also, another thing to make a note of is the only other place in your body that has a ball and socket joint is your hip as well. That's another ball and socket joint. That's why shoulder injuries and hip injuries are so common. It's because of the heightened range of motion. Knee is the same as the arm, except in reverse. It cannot go forward. It can only go back and then back and forth like that. It cannot go further past this front end or anything like that. So those are the only two places you have a ball and socket joint. Your wrist is what's called a saddle joint, which like, again, allows for some range of movement, but not a whole lot. Because it's like, it only goes as far as the saddle will let it, but it's not necessarily a ball and socket. You can kind of feel all these things if you actually move your body. So when you're doing a mech, just remember that if you're mimicking humanoid functions, the torso shape doesn't matter, right? Because humanoids are like the same thing. You have a rigid skeletal structure for your rib cage. That's a rigid structure, and everything around it is the thing that moves. The spine moves, the hips move, the shoulders, but this stays rigid. So you can do any kind of rigid shape you want for the mech or something like that. But for the shoulder, many different popular ways of doing it. A lot of people just do balls, literally. They'll just do like a ball and then something connected to the ball, essentially, to do that. And that's like one way to simulate the idea of a ball and socket joint. Another thing people will do is they'll kind of simulate the rotational elements. So they'll put like an up-down rotational thing, and they'll put like a cross rotational thing, and they'll put like a cap on top so it is kind of shielded or looks kind of shielded. And you end up with these cool kind of shapes where, you have these cool sort of shoulder mech shapes that have like a spherical cylindrical thing or something like that. And then for the arm, remember, if we're mimicking human anatomy, we don't do another ball for the arm, right? Because we're only focusing on going up and down. So instead, you can do these cool like cutout joints, right? Where it's like any other hinge on any other object. And you can even do like a big flare on the elbow behind. That's why like all the mechs have those cool elbow things. Because again, your arm can't go past this point. It can't go down. It's rigid. So water check. Oh, dude, me too. I have to do a water check as well. But yeah, so you can't go past that point. So you might as well do some cool spiky stuff. Like if you look at Evangelion and those things, you'll notice that kind of design change. And then the center point, once you get past the kind of torso, you got to think about that motion, right? So you got to somehow imitate the flexation of the spine in some way. So usually people do kind of imitate the idea of a spine behind, but for the center, a lot of people end up with this compromise of this kind of corrugated looking stacked central element for like the mech, let's say. So when you're doing mech design and stuff, just remember that you can essentially figure out what is rigid and what requires movement and just go crazy. You can do whatever shapes you want. You can do anything you want. Again, the hip is a ball and socket. Make sure you make sure that you include that information when you're designing. So, but once you understand what is rigid and what isn't, what needs to be rigid and what isn't, and if you want there to be extra rotation on the arms, you can always design and look at some engine references on what certain pivot points and all that stuff can kind of be. But using the joint structure of the human body to then make mechanical analogs, that's the best way. Especially like more organic looking mechs and stuff. So for instance, here with this example, I've basically implied that all of the guts of the inner workings of these legs are interior. The only thing I've revealed is right here, this kind of circular shape, and that kind of implies, again, this rotational up and down. That's the most important thing for this to do. But there's room for there to be some kind of counter, rotational thing on the inside. Nothing is kind of saying that that can't be possible. So I'm kind of relying on the audience to sort of believe that this is possible, right? So you kind of do a circle-y shape, or I use circle-y shapes. You can use many different shapes to kind of imply this sort of up and down, lifting up and down motion. But for the most part, I've used the analog for the kneecap. Like humans have a kneecap that kind of protects that joint. And it is protective because it is just a random joint there. So they have a cap, you need the cap there. So I use that here as like, maybe if this bends down, then this is still covering the guts. And when it flexes up, it's still covering on top. But so that's the kind of idea behind the visualization of this stuff. But I would not say that I'm an expert on mechs or that I'm especially good at mechs or anything like that. But those elements of using the human skeleton as like a jumping off point is very helpful, I would say. Bam, done. Yeah, I gotta drink some water, dude. My throat's getting dry. I will probably sign off pretty soon. I'm pretty sure. We've been going for, about 2 hours. I usually go for about 2 hours on these, I think. Again, we got pretty intense. It's honestly, I think, a little telling that I am so passionate about the whole art career thing, especially because it really is looking like globally we're in a recession. And it's hard for like artists to, like, I'm watching people who love drawing and I'm watching them make decisions for their lives that could, and I'm not saying are, but could just not be possible, like with the current economy. Like, your ability to get good enough to work in a studio might not line up with the timeline of when you actually like need to be earning a wage to like live in the world. Especially because when the economy's bad, entry-level jobs just disappear. And like right now, that's kind of what's happening. There are just no entry-level jobs. So it's hard for me to watch people continuously like really push themselves to very like intense degrees, even not just an effort, but just an anxiety. Like there's so much anxiety I feel from some people sometimes that, my heart kind of cries out. And I really want to just like let you guys know, like, hey man, art is a lifelong process. Like take care of yourself, make sure that you are making responsible decisions that are like taking care of like you and your life and your family and all of that stuff. And art will always be there for you. Always, and there are ways for you to make money for yourself, like in so many different ways. Like it's like, seriously, there are 100 different ways that you can do it, man. More than like a million different ways that you can do it. So just be open and like really, again, just focus on the skill, focus on the quality, focus on really what you care about individually. That's the most important thing, man, is that you are following your interest. Because if you put your interests on pause and make like the most soulless, lackluster portfolio to try and get an industry job, I've never ever seen that work, ever. I've seen 100 people do it. I've never seen it work. I've never seen somebody make like a concession portfolio where they go, well, I guess I just won't do what I like and I'll make this industry portfolio to get an industry job. Never seen that work ever in my life. Not once in my life have I seen that work. The sketch artist says, I'm confused by that side perspective. The perspective of just this in general? I guess I am too, to be honest. It's kind of weird. It's like a weird one. The inside. Yeah, it's kind of weird. What I'm trying to figure out right now, and again, what you can always do with this stuff, which is kind of cool, is I can, for instance, like grab this and check this out. This is kind of sick. Wait, first I have to do this. Yeah, right now I'm just painting. You can paint it and then kind of fix it later. A lot of the time. take something like this, warp it out, kind of bend things around. Probably end up doing something like this when I feel confident about just the vibe. Still kind of setting the vibe, you know? Repaint this, kind of jig it, sort of. The idea is that there's like an interior with two kind of eyes, and you're inside, and there's like some kind of controls there in front of you, and you have the controls. That's sort of the idea, but I'm kind of just feeling my way through it, to be honest. Seeing what's working, seeing what I like. Currently, the biggest problem I think with it right now is just the light. Like if I do, for instance, ooh, this is the secret tech, guys. Watch out. Watch out for the secret tech. Yeah. Adding some depth there hugely improves. Hugely improves. Oh, we got a fun question. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. So the idea behind the eye on the outside and the window on the inside is it's like a magnification. So it's like on the outside it enters through the lens and it gets expanded on the inside, and I'm going to do some like super distorted like optics in the window probably in the future or something if I want to do something like that. But yeah. No, that's intentional. Bosco says, "Hello. Hello Bosco. Cool name. Saw your comment under Steven Zapata's video about optimization in art. Would you like to elaborate? What's your idea? What's your idea between having fun and improving?" Oh gosh, I have to go check what I commented on Steven Zapata's video. What did I comment? Steven, love Steven, dude. The guy rules. Trying to book an interview with him actually in the near future. Very excited. All right, let's see. Okay, so quote, I said, "Dude, this is so real. It often feels like people just repeating things they hear on YouTube, which is just a bunch of people who have heard things on YouTube, who have just heard things at art school, or who are rebelling from art school culture. Almost none of it is coming from the individual's earned knowledge and wisdom. It's all so needy and insecure." Yeah, so what I was kind of responding to was Steven made this really great video saying stop optimizing your art. And it was kind of this sort of rebellion against this idea of like, again, being like hyper restrictive to yourself and trying to do everything perfectly and all of that. So make no mistakes, all that kind of thing. And one thing that I sort of really felt from what he was talking about is that, at least what I kind of feel sometimes in my personal frustration, is that people talking on YouTube, this includes myself, by the way, people talking on YouTube oftentimes will have this kind of attitude, or they'll talk from a place of just repeating things they've heard. It's very easy for arguments to get circular, which basically means that they have no actual reason to them. They just are proved by a statement, which then is proved by a mirrored statement. It's like a circular argument. So when I see people online and they put up videos and it's like how to maximize growth and how to optimize blah, 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 and how to super, blah, blah, blah. For me, what's so frustrating about that is that it's not something that they believe. It's something that they are repeating because it has some kind of temporary cultural power, and when something has like a temporary cultural power, like let's say something is like a fad, for instance. So something is very temporarily popular, um, things get repeated really quickly, and people kind of just say like, oh yeah, that's the right way to do things. Like all of a sudden everyone's obsessed with tangents, which is like this idea that things shouldn't really visually conflict too much, and all of a sudden everyone's looking for tangents. Everyone's talking about tangents, or like one day everyone's talking about like, render perspective or whatever. And it's like, oh my God, your perspective's off and blah, blah, blah. Everyone's hyper fixated on perspective and everything. But most of all, it's like people have this idea that there's a perfect way to get good at art. And there is no perfect way to get good at art at all. Every single person is different. You are a different person than someone else. The way you learn is going to be different than the way someone else learns. Like we already know that. But I think that, again, what can happen is artists take a overly humble position, and you end up being susceptible to people who are maybe a little bit better than you are, a little bit farther along. And what I do want to mention is that the only thing that makes someone a little bit better than you, let's say for the sake of whatever we're talking about, the only thing that makes someone a little bit better than you is the fact that they've just been doing it a little bit longer. That's pretty much it. Like, you're going to put in your effort and your hours, and you're going to get that good one day. You're going to get just as good as them. And if you get that good, then you can kind of get online and start sharing your opinions. Like, even for instance, like, me and my arguments this evening, talking about all of this stuff, I think that, there's going to be a certain amount of people who just sort of take what I say at face value and just kind of agree, because it's like, oh, well, Gabriel can, draw and paint and at a certain skill level, and I want to be able to draw and paint at a certain skill level. So, he must be right about this stuff. But you actually don't know that. Like, you have to yourself figure things out. And that's why, before when I was like popping off, I was kind of saying like, you need to discover and figure out what you care about. Like, you need to focus on what you like, what you care about. And the main emphasis of that comment was mostly pointing towards people just parroting things that they've heard without any real context of why it's good or bad. And they're not pulling from their own earned knowledge. Like, I think that you need to earn your wisdom. I remember for me, like when it comes to painting and rendering, like I was having a real hard time with painting and rendering. Line is like the most natural thing in the world for me. I love drawing with line. I love line. Line is super easy for me. It's like the most natural thing ever, and it just feels great. Painting was not. It was very different. It felt different to paint. It was much harder to paint. Not easy at all. And I sort of had to really push myself to bite the bullet and just practice, even though I kind of sucked at it. It was really hard to do that. It's hard to go from being good at something to being bad at something, especially after you've worked so hard to be good at something. It's like almost impossible. So that was a really rough challenge for me. But I remember after so much practice and after so much of this effort, this intense effort towards this goal that I had of actually getting better at painting, I kind of realized that the only thing that rendering is, for me, at least in my understanding, is it's just how light interacts with a material. That's it. It's like nothing crazy at all. It's just how light interacts with a material. And then you have to understand the material, you have to understand light, and then that's all you need, which is very hard. It's hard to understand materials and it's really hard to understand light, but that was it. And once that clicked for me, everything got easier and I had no problem painting after that. It was like a very simple thing. But when I explain that to people, they never really get what I mean. And when I try to share that information, it's really hard to actually communicate like, hey, this is what I mean by that. You have to earn it. You have to kind of really push and go on your way and really, really push yourself to the degree that like you're able to unlock that stuff for yourself. And it's not just painting and rendering. It's like everything. Like for some people, it's perspective. Like, and someone shared something with me that really changed my perspective with perspective, where they kind of mentioned that perspective isn't real. It's just a way it's just a method we use to measure things in space, but it's not like a real thing. Perspective isn't real. It's just a method. That changed everything. Kind of, it stopped being like this perspective is like real or fake or whatever. And it kind of was like, oh, this perspective, It's just not congruent. It's not consistent. And that's the problem. It's not that the perspective itself is wrong. It's just the way that I've set it up isn't congruent with itself. That probably made no sense. Anyway, that's like a little bit of what I was sharing when I was commenting on Steven's video. What up, Amani? How's it going? Daniel Ortiz. What's up, Daniel? Diego says, I feel like the same principle applies to other mediums, such as film, for example. In the Soviet Union and Europe, you had these incredibly different experimental films. It's so true. Diego says, people were finding so many new ways to make movies simply by being authentic. It's true, man. It's true. Okay, sick, Bosco. I'm glad. Glad, dude. I'm glad. Yeah, you got to earn this stuff, dude. Be like, honestly, you got to just like embrace it. Embrace being so insufferably interested in art that you just bother everybody. Just own it, you know? Just own it, man. Like, you love art. You're strange. You care about it way more than the average bear. You care about art, dude. You want to know how light works. You want to be able to draw stuff. That's like super weird, dude. You have to own it, you know? Don't be weird about it. Don't be like, oh, you know, I actually don't want to do that. It's like, imagine being a breakdancer and it's like, oh, well, I hope the cool, like, you know, windmill tutorial comes out and I can learn how to windmill from this cool windmill tutorial. You know, it's like, no, dude, you got to try and fall like 100 times and then it'll just like click. It'll click for you in a cool way. Also, here's another thing that bothers me is that artists will put in an ungodly amount of work. Ungodly, like crazy amount of effort and work into getting better, right? Like hundreds, thousands of hours of practice and dedication. And then they'll turn around and they'll tell you, oh, by the way, if you want to get good, you got to draw for like 10 hours a day and you got to like grind the fundamentals. It's like, they didn't do that, dude. They did not do that. They did not draw for 10 hours a day and they did not grind the fundamentals. They just drew stuff that they liked a lot and they got really good. But there's this weird belief in the back of their head that, oh, but if I did grind the fundamentals, because if I went back with what I know now, that's what I would do. I'd grind the fundamentals. No, you wouldn't, dude. You would not do that. You get bored and burnt out. Are you kidding me? Dude, I meet so many students who are just burnt out doing like the most boring studies on earth. It's like, draw something cool. Draw like a weird witch with a crooked finger. Stop doing like weird stuff, dude. Just do something cool. It really bothers me, you know? And they're like, well, really working on my fundamentals. I'm like, dude, work on your fundamentals by drawing a weird witch with a crooked finger. Like, it's the same. You're still drawing. Practice materials by painting something, dude. Like, I'm practicing materials right now by painting this weird Crab-Mech. All right, we kind of overworked the cockpit a little bit, not gonna lie. We kind of went a little crazy mode. I think we got to strip it back a little bit. We kind of over polished that slightly. Got to go back. Got to kind of ease up on that, I think, a little bit. Yeah, I think we bring in like a tiny bit of this. Yeah, we got to make this make sense. I think we'll make this a separate object. Like, I think that this will be like a lens that's almost like free floating. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Yeah, we'll make it like a cool free floating lens. That's sick. Probably keep working on this later, most likely. Bosco says that's actually what I struggle with. I want to get better, and I know something about fundamentals, but I desperately need to do cool stuff. But the thoughts about grinding fundamentals is always there. Dude, grind the fundamentals by doing the cool stuff. Like, make it challenging. Like, that was the whole thing for me with this Fish World project, is like, you know, if I go look at some of the original concepts I did for this, let's like go find some, I think. Yeah, like this kind of stuff. Like these are some of the original drawings I did for Fish World a few years ago, and I like these drawings. I think they're really cool. And let me pull up some more. I did like some cool guys. Like these guys are pretty cool. I like these guys a lot. These guys are interesting, right? Ooh, spooky, cool, you know? And the way I drew this was super loose, as you can see, and I kind of just like bashed in, you know, these values and all of that stuff. And I kind of like, you know, threw these figures together and painted all these up. If you look at the quality, like, yeah, the ideas here, obviously, like you can tell I care about stuff. I care about color and I care about, you know, like gesture and all that stuff. Like, you know, it's not bad. Nothing about this is bad. But the quality difference between like this and like what I'm currently working on is really big. Like this is very, in comparison, very clean and impactful and clear. And like, I'm not being super sketchy. And it took me the same amount of time. So like when I was starting on working on something like this, I really relied on sketching to kind of get me there. And I really relied on, you know, being super messy and all that stuff and everything like that. And I still love these drawings. I think they're great. But when I look at what I'm able to do in the same amount of time now, there's a big difference in like my understanding, my approach, all of that stuff. So, you know, just make it hard. Make the projects you do hard. Don't be afraid to chase the hard thing. That's like how you get good, is you chase the hard thing, right? It's impossible for you to get better if you don't challenge yourself. Like literally it's impossible. So you gotta challenge yourself, dude. You gotta do it. Okay. Okay, cool. We should probably wrap it up soon, guys. I have some stuff I gotta do this evening, and I gotta probably hop off stream pretty soon. Again, you know, I think the tone of this one, this stream, I definitely talked about a lot of stuff. Again, that, you know, it comes up whenever you guys ask me, like, how do I get a job in the art industry? It's like I'm gonna pop off. I'm gonna go crazy mode. It's gonna happen. I might have to stop answering that question. I'll just direct him to this stream, I think. But, but yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to answer these questions without, you know, getting a little bit impassioned. I'll use the word impassioned, I suppose. But yeah, I'm really loving this this idea and this cool mech design. He's so cool, and the little pilot sitting up there, and I just love stuff like that. It's so sick. Yeah, definitely excited about this idea. This was super fun to paint and come up with. Absolute blast, absolutely sick and fun and cool. And yeah, if you guys want to know, if you guys really want to deep dive with me into the kind of whole world of world building and just get good at world building, you know, if for no other reason than that you just really love to do it and you want to get better at it, I am doing a really exciting world building course in November. So the link is in the chat. It's in the description. I will put it in the chat again. If you guys are curious about learning with me, then this is a really exciting opportunity. This might be my last class for a long time, just FYI. Like, I have to put that disclaimer out there. It actually might be, man. So yeah, hop in. It's going to be really exciting. It's going to be really, really cool. I'm dropping the trailer for it tomorrow, so you'll get more information on the channel. So you'll be able to just like have a video that you watch, and it won't be, you know, me just like live stream talking about it. But yeah, definitely check out the link if you guys are curious about learning with me and yeah, developing your world building skills. It's going to be really fun. Definitely more focused on intermediates. So like people who are looking to break out of the intermediate sphere into the professional sphere. This is definitely for you. People who are really dedicated and actually want to really get out there. And for design enthusiasts, if you like designing, like this is also for you, man. It's going to be really fun. Yeah, this has been really, really exciting, fun stream. I always love connecting with you guys. I'm glad I went live, and I love this crab. I'm having so much fun. Oh my gosh. I like want to just keep painting forever. But I do have to go. So I'm going to love you and leave you here, guys. Thank you so much for listening to me ramble. Thank you so much for sticking around, hanging out. You guys rule. This has been an absolute blast. So I'll talk with you guys another time. All the best, everybody. See you later. Bye.